Friends, I come to you tonight virtually as we face multiple crises in our county. It's been 6 months since our public health officer took the difficult but important step to shut down activity in our community to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus, and 3 weeks since the county faced the most devastating natural disaster in our county's history. Our community has responded to these challenges by working hard to limit the spread of the virus and opening their homes, their wallets, and giving their times to help out their neighbors affected by the fires. My start in community work here in Santa Cruz was fighting another virus. We did not know a lot about how it spread, we did not have support from the federal government, and we needed a strong local response to be able to meet the needs of those affected. My experience in the HIV/AIDS epidemic helped prepare me as we worked to meet the needs of our community during this pandemic. Within days of the shutdown, I worked on an eviction moratorium because I recognized the economic impact of the shutdown. I then worked to find new ways to share accurate information from our health leaders through Facebook and Zoom. Working to prevent the spread of the virus among the homeless, I worked with the community on the creation of temporary housing program for some of the most vulnerable in our community, transition age youth, at the Seventh-day Adventist site in Soquel. Although our community has fared better than all of our surrounding counties, this stubborn virus continues to affect us all. As we started reopening, I drafted new regulations to allow local businesses to operate outside so they could survive the requirements that were set by the state. But even as we have done better than most, the economic impact on our community is real and painful. To address this impact, I led the board in the creation of a $1 million rental assistance program to help people stay in their homes and not add to the homeless in our community. Our board also created funds to support our local health providers, support local businesses, and purchase equipment to expand testing in our county. We are not out of the woods. The next few months will be challenging, but if people wear their mask, wash their hands, and keep 6 feet away from those outside their household, we can get through this and continue our lives in the healthiest way possible. But as we work to survive the pandemic, we must continue to face the greatest existential crisis of our time, climate change. The recent fires may be a preview of what we may face with extreme weather events and their devastating impacts. Our county has worked to reduce emissions below the 1990 levels through efforts like Monterey Bay Community Power, adding solar on all county facilities, and preventing more harm by being the first to ban fracking in the state of California. Now, we must also focus on adaptation strategies to help our community as we face the consequences of the changes to our climate. I have worked to strengthen our county fire service. Just a few weeks ago, we made a historic change to concentrate our efforts to underground utility poles in the rural parts of the district to prevent the ignition of wildfires. Working with the community, we are currently putting together the largest shaded fuel break effort in the district to ensure safety and protect key evacuation routes in case of fire. But it's not just fires we need to worry about. Rising sea levels threaten the community at the very same time. Critical infrastructure and homes are threatened by the increasingly accurate predictions about the rise of ocean levels. I've been working with our staff, colleagues from around the state, and the Coastal Commission on a set of innovative strategies to address this threat and not just simply pretend that we can hold back Mother Nature forever. Next week, our board will look at a set of policies that recognize our coastal geology, take into account our voter-approved land use policies, and prepare our county to deal with the impacts of sea level rise. This approach promotes good science, creates flexibility in our response, and sets a time horizon of 20 years so we can reconfigure the policies based on the best science out there. To accomplish these efforts, I have advocated for the needs of the district strongly and effectively. I plan to continue this advocacy in my next term to ensure the fair and equitable treatment for residents of the district. A little over 5 years ago, I pushed for an analysis about the surcharges that nearly 40% of the ratepayers to the city of Santa Cruz pay At the time, out-of-city ratepayers paid 25% more for their water than city residents pay. Given the long history and statements made by city leaders in the past, I am convinced that the reason we pay more is not scientifically based, but the result of not having a seat at the table in setting the rates. We were able to see a reduction in the surcharge to 14.5% in the last rate setting process, but the time has come to remove the surcharge completely. I have been working with community members and looking at the law under Prop 218 as the Water District begins preparation on their next 5-year rate package. They are looking at making nearly $600 million in upgrades that we need to the system. I want to work that we don't have to pay more than our fair share for those improvements. The events of this past year have shown that the pressing need for our community and our country to address the inequities of our system and the systemic racism that is part of our decisions and institutions. The Black Lives Matter movement has made clear that the need to address racism, economic, and social injustices in all of our institutions. I have worked for years to pursue effective criminal justice reform, to stop the over-reliance on incarceration, and I just led the creation of a new Justice and Gender Commission. While I have sought to empower communities of color through my work like Cradle to Career, I now recognize that we, as a community, must listen to the BIPOC community and address the implicit bias that is part of our systems. When I started work with the LGBTQ community many years ago, I recognized the importance of addressing systemic changes of laws and regulations and the conscious and unconscious barriers that prevented community members from all benefits in life. Now we must work and continue our work to ensure that all members of the BIPOC community have equal access to the opportunities that exist in our community. Last month, at the urging of our local NAACP chapter, I introduced a resolution to have the county recognize racism as a public health crisis. That action set in motion both an internal evaluation of our policy and programs, as well as to commit to working with community-based organizations to address inequities in our system. The resolution called for training of our staff and elected officials about the implicit bias that they may bring with them in decision-making. Next week, I will be working with a group of leaders from the BIPOC community about the possible creation of a new commission that could address anti-racism and economic and social justice in our community. I will continue my work to address effective criminal justice reform by ensuring that every defendant has adequate defense, that our judicial system is using proven tools to reduce incarceration, and that we address the reasons that the racial makeup of our jails does not reflect the demographics of our community. The agenda I have shared with you will not just be the work of me as an individual. It will be the product of the community as we work together to strengthen the infrastructure and policies that guide us. The work will reflect the input of many diverse voices of any age. If there's one encouraging element that we've seen clearly this year, is that the younger generation is not apathetic, but engaged and committed to addressing the challenges of our community. Not all of this change will come easy. As we know, social change is rarely unanimous and uncontroversial. I intend to use my experience to help advocates weather whatever storm is thrown at us, and, as I have done in the past, use whatever political capital I have to help others within the community. I have appreciated all the kind words for those who have spoken before me this evening. I am proud of their endorsements, and I am proud of the endorsements that I've received from across the district and the communities, from firefighters to teachers to healthcare leaders to small business owners, from Planned Parenthood to BAMEC to the unions and the Monterey Bay Central Labor Council. I am asking you to join us so we can continue this work together. My campaign is simply not about me. It's about all of us. The election is not just about the lives of residents within the 1st District, but the lives of residents within our entire county. We aren't just deciding what will happen in the next 55 days. We are looking at what will happen in the next 4 years. So please, get out and vote by November 3rd. We aren't just deciding local races, but we are deciding who will run this country. We should vote as if our lives and our environment depend on it, because they do. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you all for being friends of John Leopold.